Hey guys, I wasn't going to do a video today. I was just going to put the PowerPoints up, and I've still put them in a link, which you can see down below. But I just want to go over just a couple of the concepts. I hate to give you a test and I've sort of reviewed with you. You still can look at all the PowerPoints, and that's fine. But just looking at some of the quizzes and answers that you guys turned in, some of you may not be completely grasping a couple of the concepts. So I just want to hit some high points. Remember, economics is basically the study of choice. We all want to buy everything. We just want lots and lots of stuff, but there's a limited amount of stuff to be had. So when we determine who gets the stuff and who doesn't, that's really what economics is looking at. You know, how we try to fulfill unlimited wants with limited resources. You know, we have a problem with scarcity. There's not enough of Corvettes out there for everyone to have one. So there's a scarcity problem. And sometimes that can drive up the cost depending on what we're talking about. Economic systems, we talked about four major economic systems that are out there: a traditional economy, a free market or market economy, a command economy, and then a mixed economy. And all of those economic systems have to answer the same three basic questions, which is what to produce, how to produce it, and then who gets the goods or services once they're produced. So keep that in mind. We talked about incentives. You can have positive incentives and negative incentives, which makes you act a certain way. And that leads to something where we talked about trade-offs. That in most choices you make, there's going to be a trade-off. I could still be asleep right now, but instead I wanted to get up and make a video for you. So that was the trade-off. And that leads to something called opportunity cost. And that's the value of the next best alternative to whatever decision you made. I could still be in bed asleep, but I'm here. I could also be cooking potatoes right now, but instead I'm here doing this. If I go purchase something, I take $25 and I go buy a new rod and reel. Well, what's the opportunity cost there? What could I have bought with that $25? I could have bought a large Doc's Pizza. I could have bought a new CD, maybe two of them, or a record, whatever you kids buy today to listen to music on. So there's opportunity cost involved with every economic decision you make. We got a couple other high points here. We talked about utility, which is how much satisfaction you get from a good, and that led to a discussion of margin, and we make decisions on the margin. You know, here's a way to think about it with school. Whenever this whole COVID thing hit, we didn't just call school off for the year. That would have been a huge, big chunk of decision making. What we've done is we're going like 2 weeks at a time. We said, okay, these 2 weeks, we're not going to have school, we're going to do NTI days. We're making decisions on the margin. We see how that worked out. We said, okay, we're not going to have school for 2 more weeks. And then we had 2 more weeks to it. So we're doing it on the margin rather than just saying school's canceled for the year. So most smart economic decisions are made on the margin. We talked about the law of diminishing utility, which says the more you have of something, the less satisfaction you get from each additional unit. And we also talked about the law of diminishing, let me get this up here where I can see it, marginal benefit and marginal cost. Marginal benefit is how much more satisfaction you get from each additional unit of something you have, and that's where we talk about the law of diminishing utility, is the more you get of something, the less you like it. And then we talked about marginal cost, which means how much does it cost to produce one more unit of something. And producers have to look at that. When they're manufacturing a good and they've completely sold out and someone wants to buy one more, is it really worth it to them to produce one more of something in order to sell it to you? Click on our next to the last slideshow here. This is where we got into the four factors of production. Here's where I think we had some problems with the four factors. It's land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Land is simply any natural resource which comes from the earth. And it can be water, it can be soil, it can be crops that are planted, it can be any animal. You know, people even include sunlight as part of land, even though the sun is coming from another planet or star or whatever. You have to ask Miss Brown what it is. But that's all part of natural resources, and that's what land is. It's more than just the dirt that the building sits on. It's any resource which comes from the earth. Labor, physical and mental efforts used in a job. Once again, maybe you're an ad executive and your job is to just think up brilliant commercials for a company, or maybe you just get out and you lay block all day. Both of them labor. Capital, this is all the tools and machinery you have to produce your good. Goods needed to make other goods. So it could be a hammer, it could be a robot, it could be a welder, whatever you have to have, hammer, saws to produce your good. And finally, entrepreneurship. And here, a lot of people kind of went south on this understanding of entrepreneurship. A lot of you just listed, when I asked for entrepreneurs with McDonald's, you listed a group of entrepreneurs, and people listed Henry Ford and Bill Gates and whatever. Those people are entrepreneurs. But I want you to think about what entrepreneurs have to do. They have to manage the other three factors wisely, and they have to make smart decisions. So when you're going back to that McDonald's example, and you're trying to say, okay, what is the entrepreneurship found in McDonald's? Well, just think about an owner or a manager at McDonald's. What decisions do they have to make? How many people do I have to hire? What's my menu going to look like? What are the costs going to be? Am I going to raise the cost of a Big Mac value meal from $7 to $8? These are decisions deciding how many pounds of hamburger do I order. When you're using those other three factors in a very productive manner, that's what's really important. So when we're talking about the entrepreneurship, that's what it is. And some of you nailed it and got it perfect, but a couple of us, we kind of went out in the weeds a little bit. But that's fine. That's one of the difficulties we have doing online lessons. So I'll just sort of hit the high points. I definitely have not covered everything in this lecture. Circular flow. Guys, go back and look at that circular flow chart. And it's the circular flow of income. And it's showing the relationship between households and firms. And firms is just another word for businesses or producers. And how households take their money to the product market in order to buy the goods and services produced by the producers over here or the firms. But then the firms have to replenish their supplies, so they're going to take that money they earn and they're going to go to the factor market where they are going to purchase raw materials and labor, which, by the way, is what we're selling back to them. So it's just this constant circular flow of income. And we also talked about how the government's involved. They tax both producers and they tax us, consumers. We pay taxes as well. And they're taking that money and they're kicking it back into circular flow as well, because they're going to give some people entitlement payments that meet certain guidelines that they help their families out, and they're going to give subsidies to businesses so they'll produce other things. And the government's also a player as far as buying goods and services. The government also buys things because the government doesn't produce everything they need, so they have to be involved in the economy and buy stuff as well. We talked about a couple of leaks, that if you save money and you sort of take it out of that circular flow, it's a leak in the system because you're not letting it go round and round and round. And also, we say that buying imported goods, if you're buying things from other countries, you're taking it out of the circular flow of the United States. Trying to think if there's anything else we need to hit. Something interesting we talk about in class is the black market, and that always comes up in the discussion of circular flow, is people who are selling illegal goods and services, let's say drug dealers. Is that part of circular flow? What do you think? Well, the answer is yes. Even though their activity is illegal, they are still earning money, and when a drug dealer gets money, what's he going to do with it? Well, he's going to go buy a new Escalade or whatever it is drug dealers drive these days. So they're putting the money right back in play as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be all legal activities to still be part of circular flow. That's kind of all I got. Excuse me. So make sure you look over all 5 PowerPoints to get ready for the test. I think I'm going to put the test up at about 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not going to leave it till midnight. I'm going to take it down, let's say about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it'll be available for you to take from 10 to 4. Once again, I know you have access to information, and that's fine, and I'm glad you have it. And these questions are going to be written in such a way where you have to just think about the information and come up with your answers. But refrain from sharing answers with other people, because that's just not the right thing to do. Plus, I have many complicated and sophisticated ways to tell if you're not being honest on your test. And believe me, they work. The CIA has been in contact with me, and we'll find out. Have a beautiful day. Study for your test. Remember, it will be up online, available for you to take tomorrow from about 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Now, if for some reason you have to go, which I don't know where you'll be going, but if you have to be gone and you can't get online from 10 to 4 o'clock, send me a message here on Google Classroom, and I'll try to work something out with you. But that should be long enough for everyone to be able to take the test. So that's Friday, April 10, from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. You'll be taking your test. Have a beautiful day, and we'll crank it up again next week. Actually, we'll crank it up Friday. It's not next week. I don't know what day it is.